can't think of musical cues as good as Baby Drivers.
Jesus, no, because I do the intro on my own time, but
That's what I mean.
but the opening of the show is the most important part of the thing. And when you're faced with such a kinesthetic soundscape, beautiful thing as we just watched as Baby Driver, it's kind of hard to do it. Welcome to Hurd Ya Saw. You're listening to the podcast. I'm joined here by, in order, Racy Wilkinson, Sean Narborough, Mina Delapina, Pete Fogarty, who I'll call Foghat for the entirety of this episode, Shay Collins, EJ Lee, and Morton Wright. Say hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Well done, that's very, very good. We have just seen the movie Baby Driver, and now we're about to talk about it. In keeping with the traditions of this podcast, I'm going to go around for you for your one-line hot take, your first thought, the first thing that comes to your mind when I say, Morton, what do you think of this film?
I love that the music video that it's based on featured in the film.
EJ.
I feel like I could marry the editor.
You're not alone in that. I would also probably marry the editor because boy, there was some editing here. Shay Collins, your first one-line hot take. Please speak at the phone. I hope we got that picked up on the mic.
That will also be his first take for Cars 3.
Foghat.
I'm really happy. So happy. I didn't stop smiling through the whole thing. So yeah,
Nice.
I'm buzzing. Really.
Marina.
It is fast-paced movie. Like, I still can't calm down.
You got a lot of adrenaline?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean?
When even like the opening titles make me as happy as the action scenes, it's just. Love it.
Racy?
Dem car chase scenes. Dem car chase scenes.
Dem car chase scenes.
Yeah.
So we've had a request from friend of the show, Joe Mance, to avoid outright spoilers. So we can't talk about any of the plot points in too great a detail, which might be a challenge because this movie goes some places. It's interesting. I think for me, as a jumping off point, just as a free-form conversational thing to leap off with, who else was just like, you saw the opening sequence, you were like, yep.
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 5
Yeah.
seconds.
Yep.
Like as soon as
Yeah.
the music kicked in,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you could tell there was just this. I mean, because it
As soon as it
riffs
started
on the music video.
drumming.
Yeah.
In the car.
This is
Yeah.
what he wanted to do with Scott Pilgrim. Like when he said that he described Scott Pilgrim as a musical, where rather than breaking out into song, they break out into fights. Like this is car chases, but it's just the whole thing as well. Like he's done it in this one.
Morton, for the layman,
Yeah.
for someone who has not seen the music video, please explain the music video.
So the music video is basically just one shot of Noel Fielding in a car listening to a song and like kind of air drumming just everything along to it after 3 people have jumped out at the start to go and rob a bank.
Oh, that's good.
What song is it?
I don't remember, it's
think
not
it's
that
by
well known.
Mint Royale.
Mint Royale, something like that.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm not music though.
Yeah, I was pretty much on board with this film from the moment it really began. I think the challenge of this podcast is that I think we're all in agreement that we all really enjoyed this film, right? Right? Everyone
Well,
just...
I mean,
No.
not looking at Shay.
Oh, Shay's...
No, it's fine.
This doesn't play well for the audio, but Shay's got their head in their hands and is making more of a sad face than I would say than a pumped face. Shay.
That was fine. I liked it. It was fine.
That's the most unconvincing part.
Yeah, Shay, you know the ethos of Hurd Ya Saw is it's just unbridled, let's just react to the movie now. So react.
It's fine. Yeah, it was fine.
Was it fine?
Yeah, it was fine.
Just fine?
Are there any other thoughts other than fine?
No, fine.
That was the reaction I was expecting to have, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think it's because literally just before this I've sat and listened to 2 other people try and do a spoiler-free review as well, which they managed.
Good. All credit to the Hoxton Movies team.
But
Well done, guys.
They were really kind of not anti him, but like kind of like they pulled him up a lot on the female representation. Egg Wright.
Oh.
On the female representation in the film. And I think that's a little bit harsh. Like, okay, there's not brilliant female characters in it, but they're not terrible.
No, it could
Like
have been worse.
I've seen.
It was.
It wasn't
was
gratuitous. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he was. I fucking hate women. It
No.
was just he's made a film with mostly men, which is disappointing. But it was like, yeah.
That's fair. Sorry, we shouldn't really
it did
allow
better
dead air.
than
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
give it that.
Yeah.
For that.
What, usual
genre.
for Edgar Wright
No,
or
for
usual
that
for the
genre.
action genre?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
it did better than usual.
Hmm.
Obviously, you can do better.
My takeaway is I liked it. I thought it was good. I feel like after the first the kind of weird gap between the second act and the third act, it kind of lost me a bit.
Yeah.
There was definitely a point where I just hit and drag. I was just like, we've lost that kind of rhythm, that kind of.
It wasn't as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got a bit bogged down in the heavy feelings, a bit sort of. I don't
It
know
hampered the
going.
third act for me in that sense as well.
The problem was that they then had to like set up the third act right before the third act because none of the character stuff that sets up the conflict in the third act happens in the third.
You have that dramatic thing that
you have
happens
to
to
set
that
up-
character
you have
that
to
we
set
can't
up
talk about in too much
John
detail.
Hamm and Jamie Foxx's motivation
Yeah.
right before the third act happens.
Yeah.
So that's why it feels like it slows down because.
I feel like the sequence with the butcher, I just tuned out, and then the resolution of that scene happened. And I was like, oh, okay.
They could have skipped that.
They could,
That would've been
I
fine.
felt like that whole sequence could have just been cut for brevity, and you could
Yeah.
have just had the things building logically towards their conclusion.
It
I
felt.
will say, it was the greatest action sequence in terms of editing gunshots to
Yeah.
drum beats.
Oh, yeah.
That was like
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
pornography. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
I think we can all agree that there's a big can of Coke, for lack of a better term, going to the sound editor and the editor, who clearly got on very well.
Yes.
And we're just all like,
Yeah.
let's make something beautiful that really just works together. The scene that sold it most for me was not only the sound, the connection of sound and picture editing, but also the little tweaks in the scene when he's going to get the coffee at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like that was just.
Yeah.
I think I think.
I enjoyed that.
I think
Yeah.
everybody
Set the
in the
tone.
audience could hear how much I was liking that by the fact I was going, ah!
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
sat
we like
next to
grabbed
you
each other
experiencing
during that scene.
Yeah.
Or was it that scene?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the scene when I was just like,
Was it you?
okay. When they had the literal lyrics and like,
Yeah.
you
And
the
see,
trumpeter.
and like Deborah walks past and she walks underneath the heart, and I was like, that's the female lead. We don't even know that yet, but now I know because you've told me language of film is happening.
Yeah.
Hooah!
And anyone he passes playing music is playing in the same key,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not necessarily the same song.
All right,
Yeah.
Sean, I'm looking to you. You need to give a spoiler-free recap of the plot, maybe just the premise. You got to just because people don't know what we're talking about yet. We've run wildly
told
into
them
this
what
podcast.
film we saw?
Oh yeah, we said
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he said
we
said
baby.
Yeah.
just
Just
in
a film. That's
just
what
in
we
case
saw.
I forgot. It's
Fast and Furious.
it's Baby Driver. I mean, I know that the title of this on my SoundCloud will say it's Baby Driver, but just in case you were confused, it's Baby Driver by Edgar Wright. Sean, if you would like to give us
Yeah.
the premise.
So, Baby Driver is about a driver named Baby, who works for Kevin Spacey, who is probably someone from the Atlanta underworld.
Yes.
That's who carries out heists, and Baby becomes his lucky charm, his sort of getaway driver on every single job that he does.
But how good at driving would you say Baby is?
He's fucking amazing.
He's the best? Would we say he's the best?
He's the best.
He's the best.
Yes.
Best there ever was.
Yes. Yes. Yes, so while he is doing all these jobs, he meets a young woman called Deborah, who with an O in the name, which I've never seen before.
Deborah.
She looks
Normally it has an
familiar.
H on the end if it's got an O.
Yeah, so it's weird.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I shouldn't be focusing on that. That's what bothered me. No, but yes, he ends up falling for Deborah, and ends up building a relationship with her. As Baby has finished his last job, tried to get out. Kevin Spacey comes back around and says, "I need you for this one last job. I need you for this big job."
Would you say that this is the premise, that this is the story of Baby's last job?
Yes.
I would interject there.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not that. It's not a last job. It's not the cliche of a last job because it's if anything, it's a first job. Like he kind of makes the point of saying that is the first job that he will earn on. Like there's no, it's
That
not
is a fair
like
point,
in
yes.
his mind it might be last job and get away, but it's not the cliche of
Well,
like a last
if
job.
anything,
film.
you could say that the last job, quote, I'm doing finger quotes, audio people, the last job actually happens in the first act.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's all like, oh, you thought you were
Yeah.
out of the game? You thought the movie could just stop here, baby? No. There's no escape from
So
Kevin
yeah, no,
Spacey.
that's what I really liked all the way through was that it's not the last job cliche. as such.
So I think it's, to anyone who's seen an Edgar Wright film before, I think it's kind of redundant to point out, like, Edgar Wright has a really good sense of visual style.
Yeah, but I think it looked like an Edgar Wright film, but it didn't. It
Yeah.
still felt different. It still felt distinct. Like it didn't just feel like he was just bringing out the same old tropes and the same cliches, the same ways of cutting stuff together. Like the percussion that you were talking about, the way it was all edited together with gunshots or doors opening, like it gave it this like, I don't know, this heartbeat, this pulse to the whole thing, which gave it an energy that, you know, he has in all of his films, but it didn't just feel like another one, like him bringing out the same old stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Apparently, for particular scenes, cast members had earpieces in them, so they were listening to the songs playing out.
Oh, yeah. And I
as the
was
scene
gonna point
playing.
out before I listened to Edgar Wright saying that not only were the music choices to do with like his favorite songs and what he wanted in the film, but a lot of it was to do with timing, especially with like that beat at the beginning and the walk sequence, and especially with the gunshots and the drum beats. Yeah, so not all the were like, oh, I'm just gonna have my favorite songs. A lot of it was like really specific
Thinking
choices.
about like the rhythm and how to make the jump.
Probably
whip,
not
jump.
just made by Edgar Wright, but also sound design and stuff
It's
like that.
pretty remarkable though, because like the kind of, it's not even an unspoken rule. The spoken rule is you don't put song choices in a script. Like you just don't, you don't put song choices in a script because you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. Because it'll be like, no, that's going to cost more than that actor, so
They
you're
had
not doing
They
it.
had a Beach Boys song in there. Did you catch that?
I
That must
didn't,
have cost
no.
a fortune. It was called Let's Go Away for a While, and it's from Pet Sounds.
Oh,
it's an
yeah, no,
instrumental.
yeah.
When he first meets her,
Yeah.
it must have cost a fortune. It's a
Yeah.
fucking Beach Boys song.
Mm.
And no one would have known that unless you're really familiar with Pet Sounds.
So it looks like Edgar Wright, previously small-time British director, now coming into like his own in the like larger Hollywood sense, is getting to make big, dumb, expensive decisions to pursue his vision. Shay Collins, if I can call upon you, you've been sitting there rubbing your chin in a very thoughtful way. Do you have any thoughts you wish to share on the film? Because I feel like there's contention here, and I want to create a sort of sense of conflict in the podcast.
That's a bit forced.
It's a little, oh yeah, it's very forced. Like, you know, like, let's not pretend, guys. You all know these are organic conversations, but also at the same time, I've got to control.
Are you jealous of his jacket?
Always.
You should be.
I'm always. I mean, my jacket's not bad.
No. I mean, is Shay jealous of Baby's jacket?
Oh.
Why would I
Shay's
which
wearing-
want a blank one when it says Red Sox on it?
Yeah. Well, okay. We're gonna get sports
Because it
teams
was
in
in
here.
Atlanta, not Boston.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. They have a shitty baseball team.
Yeah, but A.
Oh, great. We're gonna
Before B.
get. We're making enemies of
That
American
was not-
cities now. It's bad
Hang
enough.
on, on the last podcast we went to
Boston.
war
Sorry.
with the lost.
Yeah, we've already started picking fights with larger podcasts. Now we're gonna start picking fights with American cities. Great.
Oh.
If this ever,
You wanted conflict.
I did want conflict, but not of this nature. Shay, please get us away from shit talking Atlanta. You're a lovely city.
No, I
it
was shit
seems.
talking Boston.
Oh, well, it was.
I don't know. I'm thinking about how Edgar Wright writes.
Yeah.
This is his first solo written film, unlike any of his other films. So. it's
Oh yeah,
something-
because obviously, what's his nuts?
Apart
Simon
from
Pegg.
Simon
Chris
Pegg, of
Corbin,
course.
yeah.
He's always co-written
Simon
like.
Pegg and
Joe Cornish as well, isn't it?
And Scott Pilgrim's done by Michael Bacall, wasn't it?
And of course, based on the book by Brian Lee O'Malley as well. Yeah.
Yes, I'm wondering how does he write movies and what are his flaws in his script writing? 'Cause
What would you say are the flaws?
I don't know. Well, Fistful of Fingers is just a script for jokes, and that's his other solo written film where it's just like this is just for jokes, and it's going for it. And the film is servicing visual comedy, and then Shaun of the Dead is kind of, I don't know. Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are very distinct.
There's genre pieces more.
There's genre pieces.
It's like Shaun is obviously the zombie thing, but it's also about like toxicity of relationships costing you everything as a kind of like broader theming. Hot Fuzz is, you know, about friendship, but also it's like a big pastiche of like the action buddy cop genre, you know, seen through the lens of like small town England. World's End is about alcoholism, dependency, and the toxicity of people who refuse to grow up as viewed through like an alien horror movie. World's End is an
That was a
interesting.
weird movie.
It's a weird movie. The more I think about World's
It
End,
was
the more
rushed.
I kind of like come back to it as being like, no, I kind of see what he was going for.
That's
Yeah,
the first
it-
Edgar Wright film I ever saw.
I can see what he's...
That's a
Same.
weird place to start.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Have you seen
that I went to.
Spaced?
No.
I will bring it in tomorrow.
Yeah. Spaced is super like, okay, this is where he comes
Yeah.
from.
No, I think the thing to always stress with The World's End is that it was massively rushed because of the situation with one of the working title producers. Like, he was very ill at the time, and it was the kind of thing that it was like, you gave me my break. I'm getting this made before. Like, he dropped Ant-Man to make World's End before, and we see how that worked out. But in both films. But
Ant-Man wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no,
Ant-Man
but
was
it wasn't
fine.
him. But
It wasn't Edgar Wright.
What I
It
just
was
mean is,
fine.
like, World's End, like, yeah, I have problems with it, but at the same time, like, you can see what he was going for, so like, I'm forgiving of it.
It's this big apocalyptic finish to like the Cornetto trilogy, and that
Yeah.
whole kind of like, that I'm going to explore human themes through a sort of genreific kind of lens. But Shay, you were talking about the tropes and
I don't
traits
know,
inherent to Edgar
I'm
Wright's
still
writing.
thinking.
Still cogitating.
I would
Okay.
say, in terms of what you were saying about Fistful of Fingers, how that was in service of like visual jokes and whatnot. This was obviously in service of music, but also the visuals as well. And I think that's why it did dip.
But there
at
was
that
still
one
some
point
really
because
great
the music-
one-liners in there. We
Yeah,
can't
there
forget
were.
that.
Yeah.
The characters, I believed in all the characters.
Yeah.
Like, the cast were all like really well suited to their roles. I thought like they were really on point with the timing as well, like comic timing. Like, I think the reason that it dragged as well is because the music stopped serving the visuals. Like,
That's
there
what
was
I mean,
far
yeah,
less
yeah,
of
yeah.
that kind of percussive beat keeping things going. There was
Yeah.
less of the kind of jokey songs going on. It was just
It was emotional beats.
yeah, and
rather
it
than
kind of
percussive
lost
Oh,
the humour to it. You know?
get out.
beats. The film I would say it reminds me of the most, I wouldn't be surprised if I am the only person at this table to see it because I have the masochistic tendency. Shoot 'em up.
Oh, is that the Clive Owen one?
Yeah,
I
with
did-
Paul Giamatti as a character literally called Bugs Bunny.
Nope.
And it was like, it was again, it was that kind of idea that it was like, rather than like breaking into song, you would break into a gunfight. And it was just, and it was really weird. And it tried to do again, like the kind of quick sound editing and whatnot as well. It's atrocious. But it's like, this is it done well kind
Okay.
of thing. But, yeah.
I'd been told ahead of this movie that a lot of people were raving to me about how John Hamm, like, was great, and I disagree. I
Yeah.
thought
He was, like-
he was fine.
He was fine.
He was being John Hamm,
Yeah.
being like a slightly grungier John Hamm than we're used to. Not really the
Weird ass
smooth.
haircut.
Yeah,
He
well,
held back
he had my
the
haircut.
third act.
I mean,
No,
yeah,
you pull it off.
Thank you.
He wasn't menacing enough. Like,
No,
like,
Jamie Foxx was so much more intimidating.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I mean, I loved what happened to Jamie Foxx in this movie, non-spoilers of course, but I think his character was so much more like drove the agency of it, was so much more linked in with, like, you know, making Baby as a character feel uncomfortable and got at, and then you kind of end up with John Hamm being like the final opponent, and I'm
but
like,
there was no menace
Do you
to
think
him
that's
because
because
of it.
he was completely sane? Like, Jamie Foxx's character, you were kind of like, well, he could kind of do anything. He's just kind of shooting
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But John Hamm's character is relatively rational, so there's nothing ever unexpected about him.
Isn't the point that John Hamm's character is almost like Negascott? He's the nega baby. He's what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it just kept going, and if Lily James then got involved, and that's the point that he's facing off against like this older.
Yeah.
well, like Baby would have gone to Wall Street?
No.
no.
He, like,
He was-
used to
in
be a
terms of criminal
driver
sense.
and then just kept on going and like dragged other people into it and like the
But like he
woman.
would still have Lily James and that love, but like that's what he would become. He would become John Hamm's character. Like
Yeah.
John Hamm gets into the business because he makes a mistake and he falls into it and then keeps going.
Yeah.
And that's what would happen to Baby. I think that's the. I think
He was
that's
supposed to
the
be
point.
fighting his future self.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable enough theory. I don't think the movie communicated that to me specifically. I don't know about anyone else. Did you feel there was that kind of?
I think it makes sense.
I can see it, but
Yeah.
I'd sort of be like, I don't feel like they established John Hamm's character enough as having enough personal parallels to Baby. I mean, they like.
He's a wheelman before, and he's like, I listened to Brian Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's no, it's subtle. Like they don't hit you over the head with it.
Well, no, it's subtle, but at the same time, they had that whole sequence where you had Jamie Foxx being like, "Hey, John Hamm, I'm gonna lay out all of your shit," which was all different to what Baby's shit was.
Oh yeah.
I-
Camp-
And I was like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sequence,
yeah.
that
That's
felt much
the
more
point,
like
though, that
obvious theming.
It's like EJ said, that's how it doesn't hit you over the head with it. Like
Yeah.
maybe if those scenes had happened in a different order, then you could
Then
kind of
maybe.
see it a bit more. But again, that would again be hitting you over the head with it. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I liked that kind of parallel definitely. But
So-
his character and his performance lacked the menace that Jamie Foxx had, and it meant it lost a little bit.
So what we're saying is I was too stupid for this movie.
Yes.
Okay. So we're at the
You
20
will
minute.
say that as well.
Yeah. So we're at the 20-minute mark. I'm now going to go around for you guys for your final thoughts.
Oh,
Morton is gesturing that I should start from the other side of the circle.
I mean, you introduced me last.
I
so.
did. Oh, okay. Right. Well, fair enough. Let's just change up and just start with Pete.
I really liked Ansel Elgort, which I wasn't expecting to. I'd only seen him in The Fault in Our Stars, and I
Was
thought,
that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I never saw
He
that
was
movie.
one of the Han Solo shortlists.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was really good in this movie.
I
was
really
fine.
wasn't
Yeah.
sure what to expect, but I was really pleasantly surprised by liking him and thinking that it was really charming, and he suited the kind of just like acting cool to music can be such a hard thing to do, but
Yeah.
he did it really kind of like effortlessly and really nicely. Like I
Excellent.
didn't just kind of turn off from him right at the start. I was on his side.
Nice.
So
It's
yeah.
a big, beautiful giraffe.
A giraffe-mingo.
I don't. No, we're not doing corporate thing. Get out. Come on.
Get sponsorship.
No, why you gotta ruin my podcast? I bring you back after a hiatus and you fucking shit in my lap. Jesus.
I chose not to come.
All right. Oh,
Sorry.
all right, Sean. Can I get your closing thought, please?
It's something like, a film that relies so heavy on music, it could have gone down a very bad route. I think most of us all saw Suicide Squads and realised
Oof.
that was a film that tried to rely so heavily on music.
I
and
avoided that film.
Me too.
We all regret Midnight Decisions.
Just
for
to
that.
check,
Thank you for taking that bullet for
who
us.
around this table actually saw Suicide Squad?
Yep.
So
I'm so sorry.
3 people. Marina, was that a yes or a no?
sorry.
That was a no. Okay.
No, she has taste. So. But yeah, it's something, it could have gone down that route if it was not done properly, editing like action to your music or just any scenes to the music. I mean, it was just done so expertly done. It was just wonderful because it was just like every time like you would have a good piece of music that worked well in the scene, I was smiling like ear to ear, and it was just, it was just a fantastic watch and probably up there with one of my favourite films of the year.
Excellent. Racy?
I think, like, the parts that hit well, I really enjoyed, but, like, the parts that really dragged it, so, like when I just sort of phased out, basically, because I do that a lot, it sort of just brought it back down and didn't make it as a wholly enjoyable movie that it could have been if it just kept going, because I rewatched Hot Fuzz recently, and I was just, like, on that the entire time, but, I mean, it was still a really good film. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just some bits dragged it down, so I couldn't enjoy it 110%.
Less consistent than previous
Yeah,
Edgar Wright efforts?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I'm not
all
very good with words.
right. EJ.
Okay. I went into this having very low expectations, and I knew that I would just want to be watching it for the editing, and it was way better than I ever dreamed that it would be because it was so consistent throughout the entire film. And I just want to watch it again and focus on all of the cuts and how they all fit together and all the offbeats and the syncopation. Of the
I'm really
editing.
looking forward to any number of well-known YouTube channels where they do like, let's break down the editing
Yes.
of this movie. I feel like there's like a good 45-minute long video and just like, look at all this crazy shit
Yeah.
that they do.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
That I would watch. The story was fine. I was like into it. It drags sometimes, but yeah, overall, just like the editing was so good.
If I may just interrupt final thoughts for a moment, in as spoiler-free way as possible, I kind of just want to gauge the feeling in the room. The ending sequence, yay or nay. I tell you what, I'm just going to go around the table and just get a yay or nay on the ending. Because for me, I was
Which
kind
ending?
of the ending, like the way the final stuff happens.
As in final
You need to be
5
more
seconds to
specific.
5 minutes.
Like the climax
Like
of the
lit-
resolution.
Like the final ending bit, like the last 2 to 3 minutes, where that whole bit, which we can't talk about in
Okay,
specifics,
yeah.
happens. Because I was kind of, I don't feel like we really need to see this. This kind of is detracting from my enjoyment of the film. You should have already finished. Why are you still going? Morton, yay or nay?
Nay. It was the kind of like accessible mainstream audience way to end it.
Yeah. It felt weird because Edgar Wright's never necessarily strayed away from having weird, dark endings. Like we were talking about The World's End. That ends on a really like weirdly dark moment. You're like, holy shit, okay, alcoholism has destroyed the human race. Cool. Ruha! You know, as a whole thing. EJ, yay or nay on the ending?
Mixed. I was not sold on it. I was disappointed by how it started, and then once it started going, I was just kind of like, this is fine.
Yeah.
But I was correct about the end credits.
Ah,
Yeah.
very true.
Told you before.
Shay,
Yeah,
yay or nay on the ending?
Mixed again. It wasn't enjoyable to watch the ending. It wasn't like, but if for the story, it was important, and I think you're wrong. It's not the mainstream Hollywood way to end it. Almost like it would be like.
Actually, yeah, no, I get what you mean there. Yeah, there's a much more mainstream Hollywood ending for it.
That's
Yeah,
what they were doing.
yeah.
But they don't do that very then.
Yeah, no, true.
This is actually what would happen. And that's good.
Okay.
Without spoiling anything, I actually thought that they were going to make some sort of big kind of statement with how it was ending, like something more society-based, like, but they didn't really commit to it. They kind of did. I'm a bit mixed. Like, I think it was it was getting to the point where I was hoping that things would sort of finish on a nice big bang, and it kind of went on a little bit too long. So
that's kind of where I was. I was like, they had a big climactic moment. I was like, oh, this could be a great ending shot.
Yeah.
Oh, we're still okay. Yeah. What I would describe as, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but with source code. Source code where they have unmistakably what is the last shot of the movie, and then it keeps going for like 6 minutes, and you're like, no, you had a perfect ending. Please go, just cut. Marina, yay or nay on the ending?
Mixed as well. I think like, the whole film was full of kind of interesting decisions. It wasn't like too cheesy.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of subtle, so I accepted it.
Yeah. Sean?
Both yay and nay, because like I definitely feel like you could have taken out those sort of last 2 minutes, and ended it at
that point.
Bits,
yeah.
Damn you, Joe.
I love that we can't talk about the content of the ending.
No.
Just for Joe.
Just for you, Joe Mance.
Joe, who's God.
When you listen to this, you better send us all nice messages, everyone.
But yeah, I can understand their reasoning for why they wanted to put in that ending as well. So I can understand that sort of reasoning, even if I feel like they could have ended it by taking out those last 2 minutes.
Racy?
Yeah, I agree with Sean. Like, it's a nay for me. But you could ended it at one point, but we'll drag it on. But it's not too distracting. It's not like it takes away from the entirety of it. It's not atrocious, basically.
A slightly snubbed note.
Yeah.
In an otherwise good piece of music. Doing a thing with musical theming? Anyone? No? Marina, why don't you save us from my terrible jokes with your final thoughts?
I already said some. I think it's a fun film to see during the summer, especially.
Yeah.
Nice. Morton.
It's kind of like the positive love child of Kick-Ass, Shoot 'em Up, as we've already mentioned, and kind of every driver based film.
Yeah.
Particularly Drive.
It did feel very much like a sort of less serious version of Drive.
Yeah.
Especially that opening sequence.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I should watch Drive again. Holy shit.
My main final thought is that I dread the amount of imitators that there will come in about 2 years' time.
Yeah.
It's just they will not work. They will not take the good bits like this has. They will just take the general message of the editing and just fuck it up.
Well, on the other hand, it's good to see a film that you could say is positively trying to influence the complexity of editing, because that was a complexly edited film. And if more films try and emulate that, I'm like, yeah, sure. Have a couple of bum notes. Have people make some shit films trying to do it, but at least they're trying now. Rather than it's more like editorial style rather than just invisible editing.
Yeah.
Would be my take. Shay, final thoughts.
This feels like the opposite version of an Edgar Wright film, where most Edgar Wright films style serves story, whereas this film feels like story is serving style, style is the most key thing here. So I think I need to rewatch with that kind of frame frame of mind.
More about like the feeling of it rather
Yeah.
than like the nuts and bolts of it.
Because every other Edgar Wright film is a very tight story and there's strong emotional cores. But this feels more like, oh, I want to make a big car chase set to music film. I need to have a story to go along with it. And it seems reverse engineered. So I need to rewatch it with that frame of mind.
So, the unfortunate thing is, guys, as is tradition on Hurd Ya Saw, normally we arrive at some abstract, ridiculous point that has nothing to do with the film as our final thought. But it seems, through all the discussion that we've had here, we've actually arrived at just, yeah, the movie's alright.
I thought it was better than alright.
Yeah?
I thought
I
it was
really
great.
liked
Yeah,
it.
generally positive, yeah?
Everyone go see it.
Everyone should go see
Yeah, I
it.
thought it was
Everyone should go see
really,
it.
really fun.
pleasantly surprised. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Ask
Don't-
us again in a week.
Yeah.
I think I'll still like
No,
it.
I think
I mean,
I'd still
when I've
like
listened
it.
to the soundtrack a few more times, then I'll be even more on board with it. So, like,
Alright.
I think we should rebrand it as Fast and Furious 8. Make people see this instead of Fast and Furious.
It's possible. Oh, I can't unlock my phone. Shit. Oh, God. Oh, this is all going in.
Oh no.
It's tremendous. So, I've got nothing to say for the ending. Is this
We just ended it.
is this our first flaccid finish?
I mean, much like the film.
And there it is. That's the ending. Enjoy your flaccid, empty ending, everyone. Goodbye.